So in static Sass, I have my styling, and in main.css, I want to write a few styling elements. So there is carved title, and carved content. Let me just do something incredibly minor. And so I can say div of class carved, okay? And I want to say border like margin 5 pixel, border like 2 pixel solid gray. Okay, and then inside a div carved, if there is a div carved title, okay, I want like font weight bold, so the title will be in boldface, and font size 150%, okay, and that's it, I guess. Let me try with only these, right? I just want to do a minimal example. I'm using Sass. You don't need to use Sass. You can use you can use just normal CSS. But since I'm using it, I need to go in Applications, Web to Pi. Sorry, in Applications, Start, Static. Okay. Here is the file where there is this config.rb, which is a configuration for Compass, and I say Compass watch dot. Okay, this should be able to compile my my CSS into my app.css. So if I now reload my website here, this should have a slightly better format. Let's see whether it works. I need to log in, and I was Luca. Let's see if I remember. Yeah, that's curious. Now, if you asked me to do that, I wouldn't have known how to do that. That's the interesting part. So what am I doing? This is much more interesting than I thought it would be.
Well, CSS did you put inside of another?
Let's see what crazy animation there is. Yeah, but I didn't really want to waste time on these class. These are simply divs. You say that I may have some crazy leftover.
You put inside of card.
I think stupid's using card.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Yes, I would have gone crazy for a long while. So carved is a particular name of stupid in which it believes that there is an element that turns. You don't know how thankful I am, because I once made a similar mistake. It was my first time writing C code with a GNU compiler, right? So I wrote a piece of code, I ran it, and it spit out to the compiler immediately the message, try, value undefined. And then I say, I know that the value try is undefined, but I don't use it anywhere. So many variables are undefined and I've never used. You know, I mean the variable Superman is undefined. But why is it a problem if I never use it? And I think I stared at it for half an hour before realizing that I had written a file try.c, and in that I had a variable called value, and that was undefined. So try value undefined meant that in the file try there was a variable called value whose value was undefined, and I think I went in loops for half an hour. So I think we all have these problems. So okay, so class card is is what? Memo. Okay, and there is memo title and memo content. Fine. Sorry. Thank you. So now here in main CSS, I just do give memo, okay, memo title, okay. I mean yes. Let's reload these. So, and this doesn't work still. Oi, oi. Memo title. Did I make mistakes here? Font weight bold. Essentially, none of these is being read. And it's probably because I was not refreshing. I had to do shift reload in order to reload also the CSS, okay? So this is a classical mistake everybody does, including me, okay? So you see that this works. Now, what I want to do is this. I want to be able to click, I want to be able to add, say, for each one of these dividers, divs, right? A list of buttons. And again, I won't style it very nicely. I will simply put them at the bottom somewhere. But I want at least a button for edit, and at least a button for delete. The button for delete, for the moment, I will not implement it, and we will implement it later in a moment, okay? So let's try to do it well. In index.html here, I split the memo content, and now I say something like div class is equal to container. How do you flash things to the left? Left, something like this. Div, or maybe class container, and the one below is class is equal to left. Okay, so I do this, and here I can put my buttons. Maybe I want to say container and also button list, as you know, so I can style it if I wish, whatever. And here we can put the buttons, and I can say button class is equal to btn, and then we can choose the color. This is for edit, so I had stupid.css loaded somewhere here. No, so we can choose. I think normal color is just fine, actually. Okay, and inside it, I want to put an icon. I don't want to put writing, I want to put icons so that I don't have to internationalize it. And so this is an I tag with a class that is equal to fa-edit. Okay, so there is an icon for editing that I think looks like a pencil in some way, right? So we can use these. And so this should be able to put a button. Before I do anything else, let me, oh, and I didn't want left, actually, I want right. Let me see whether this works. Sorry, I think I lost which one of these windows we are. I think it's this one. Okay. So this is not very nice because the button is outside of the div. Does anyone see an obvious reason why this should be the case? I don't, actually. Yeah, but it should just work. I mean, I should add paddings all over the place, but it's not obvious to me why this is treated in that way. I don't know if the CSS experts are able to do it. I mean, I can debug it later, but I think otherwise I wanna really deal with the logic in this particular class. So I will simply post a restyled application later, okay? And for the moment, I will leave it horribly looking, okay? So actually, let me change that into a delete button, trash, okay? And let me put before a delete link, an edit link. So the point is this. Think at it a moment. I want to put an edit link on each card. And I'm sorry, I don't know, maybe you can, someone of the TAs, if I posted the code, can check why it is so horribly looking. Let me do like that, to see if some TA can figure it out on the fly, just to give them So git commit am bad styling. Okay, git push origin lecture 5 2018. So you have a working version of the app in which the visual format is bad, and maybe if you can investigate. Now, instead I want to talk about the content portion. I mean, the point is this: these buttons have to go to a place that is specific to each card I want to edit, right? Because each button to edit a card, and also to delete, but the delete button we do it later. But each one of these buttons needs to be able to edit a specific card. So I have to essentially build a link to edit a specific card. That is what I need to do. And so let me try to do it. I do it in this way. Instead of a button, I can also say an a link class is equal to button. Okay, and href is equal to something. We will add it later. And here I put the icon e class is equal to edit. Okay, so now we will have this button as well. Let me see how it looks like. I mean, it will look bad as usual, I guess. Yes. So you see, this is the edit button, and this is the trash button. The trash button is not connected. This is connected to a link, which currently is a wrong link because I have not specified where it goes, okay? So I need to build a URL for editing this particular CL, okay? CL is the element on which I'm looping inside this loop that is producing all the cards, okay? So the idea is this: as you can see from the database layout, every element has an ID field. This is implicitly specified. In tables.py, there is no ID field that is explicitly given here, but it is present in the database. If we went to edit this application, we would see that actually we can do it, I guess. If I opened
should do it manually.
Yeah, maybe I should look at it manually. I have always this problem. Oh, my SQLite is always here. So you see, so I have various tables. One of these tables is this checklist table, which is this checklist table, okay? So I can say select star from checklist, and this will give me the full content of that database table, okay? And it contains the following things. With ID 1, there is the user email, the title, the content, and the date in which it was modified, okay? So you see passport and then phone written in this way just because I entered a new line, and this is simply printing out the new line instead of quoting it, okay? So it's not perfect the way it's displayed. But you see that every row of the database has an ID field. So a simple way that we can build this URL is, say, when you edit, I will send you to a URL that says something like edit / and then the number that corresponds to the item you want to edit. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, here I say the href is equal to a URL that is default, because I'm writing it, this is the default controller. I go to the edit controller, okay, and the arguments are going to be equal to the cl.id, okay. So if I do this and I reload this site, now this link here will go to start default edit 1. Unfortunately, it's very small, but if I click on it, you see that it goes there, and it tells me that it's an invalid function simply because I haven't written the code yet. Okay? So how can I write the code for editing? Well, let's do it. So I go to my default controller, and I start writing. And actually, if you don't mind, what I really want to do is copy some of the code that I had written last year. And then describe it and adapt it for you, because the code for last year is not equal to the code from this year. And so I'm going to do this adaptation. But it's a very good starting point. And actually, let me, to be on the very safe side, let me use a slightly larger font so that I'm sure that the video comes out a little bit better. Okay, this edit function is decorated. These are decorators and that you can put in front of a function. A requires login decorator is saying the following. It's saying you can access this particular function only if you are already logged in. And if you're not logged in, this will redirect you to a place where you can actually log in. So this takes care in a single line of the fact that that particular page is accessible only to logged in users. You know, it's super convenient. And the implementation of it, if you want to look at it, actually we can probably look at it, but the problem is that the code is, you know, with PyCharm it's easy to go looking at where things are defined. It's only that this definition is not so incredibly readable in a hurry. But you can see that, oh yeah, because it uses another, you know, we would have to read more code. But I can tell you what it does essentially. It checks the user, the auth.user. If auth.user is none, it returns a redirect to the place where you can log in. Okay? And if auth user is not none, then it simply lets you proceed. So it's not complicated to implement, okay? And it's very useful. So creates displays or views a checklist. So this function is very powerful, and I think I want to keep it powerful, even though we may need it only in some particular case, because it shows you how much we can do in a single controller, okay? So essentially, I want to get function URLs of the type. If there is no checklist ID, so if the URL is like this, edit, if there is no checklist ID, it offers a form to create a checklist, okay? If instead you have a URL of the type edit3, okay? So if there is a checklist ID, it offers a form to display a checklist. And if there is edit3 and edit is equal to true, okay, it offers a form to edit of the this is too complicated. Yeah, let me simplify it really. It offers a form to edit a checklist. So I want to do something a bit simpler than before, okay? To edit a checklist. So in fact, let's do it much simpler. Let's just do a form to edit, because I want to do the other things in a different way. Okay. You know, I'm not guaranteed that the requests argument 0 is present. Okay, if I end up in that controller, I'm only guaranteed that somebody wrote /edit but then I don't know that there is going to be a slash plus an integer ID. And the rule is that you can never trust the URLs that you're given by the browser, right? Because they may be faulty, or it may be somebody just playing and editing the URL by hand. Okay, so we don't know that. So if there is no URL, okay, so here I'm changing the code, and I'm saying we send you back to the general index. Okay, so I simply say return redirect to a URL that is going to be default index. Okay, because this is the URL of my main page. Okay, so you see that these helpers that I was using in the HTML file are in fact Python functions that are available also from the Python code. Okay? You understood what I did so far, right? Now, else, a checklist is specified. Okay? So I want to fish out the checklist. Now, there is a minor problem. I cannot simply fish out the checklist whose number you give me, because it might be the case that checklist number 7 belongs to somebody else. I mean, this is not a single user system, right? So I need to be able to search for checklist number 7, and provided that it is associated with the user who is currently logged in. So I'm building a query that says db checklist user email is equal to auth.user.email. I don't need to worry whether we are logged in or not, you know, because of the decorator. So I'm asking essentially fish out a checklist that has this conjunction of these two conditions. So this single ampersand is overloaded in Python in Web2Py to mean you know, conjunction of conditions. So you can see these in the chapter on database access. Okay, so I'm building a query that says the user email is the logged in user email, and the checklist ID is equal to the 0th argument of the request. So of the number that comes afterwards, okay? Because when you have a, edit is the controller, this function. 3 is request args 0, okay? So I do this query, and then I say, I fish out only the first element of the query if there is one, otherwise none. Let me explain. When you have a query and you give a select statement, the thing you get in general, we saw it in the previous index function, is an iterator over the results. Okay, this is a uniform interface, so whenever you do a query, you get an iterator. In this case, it's a little bit silly to work over an iterator, because we know that there is either no result or there is at most one, right? Because we are specifying the ID. And this is an incredibly common situation in which you are going to fish out a particular piece of data, and either you find it or not, and those are the two cases. But you don't want an iterator, you want either that or none. And so this dot first implements that. It's simply a small convenient helper that instead of returning an iterator, it returns either the first element of the list if the list is not empty, or none. You know, I could have written the same by saying, I don't know, well, how would I have written these? I would have written some sort of L is equal to db queue. This executes the query queue on the db, dot select. And then I would have said, if len CL is equal to none, if len L is equal to 0, else L of 0, okay? But this would have been equivalent. It's only a lot less elegant, okay? But so you know that there is no mystery in this first thing. So if CL is equal to none, what is the case? You are either asking a checklist that doesn't exist, or you are asking somebody else's checklist. But in either case, I want to send you away, right? So I have this session.flash. These flashes are the message on top of the screen that says not authorized, and I kick you back, as before, to default index, okay? So this business is, you always have to do it. You always have to validate the parameters passed to you, because it's not like you're writing a single piece of code, right? What the server receives from the browser is always it can always be adversarial, can always be played with, okay? So we don't need this business, because we are doing something simpler, and we don't need to add the buttons in this particular way because I want to do it differently, okay? Okay, so now I want to build a form, just as before. You see, let me compare the code. Here I was saying form is equal to SQL form of DB checklist. So if you just say this, if you just specify the database table, you get an empty form that is used for insertion. Just a moment, okay? And then I can get to your question. But if I create a form just specifying the table, I get a blank form. Here, what I want is a form that contains already the values of a particular record, because I want to edit it. I don't want to create a new one, right? So the way to do it is this. I say, I'm going to edit DB checklist, and I'm going to specify the particular record, okay? Now, deletable tells me whether Web2Py should add a small option, a checkbox that says, you know, delete. In this case, I don't want this to be deletable, and so I say false. And read-only is also equal to false, but I don't think I need to specify anything there. Okay, so that's the line. Yes?
I was just wondering if when you're checking if the user is logged in or not, so if CL is equal to none, and the redirect, do you need to return the redirect like you did up at the top, or does that stop the function? Because I think they would just kind of keep going after the redirect.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, first of all, I'm not really checking whether the user is logged in here. I'm checking more whether the user owns the record, right? But his question is great. So, a redirect actually causes the function to return. Is it true or not? Now I have doubts. Sorry. No, I think he's right, actually. It's just that I forgot my return statement. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, so okay, so I'm continuing to edit this code, okay? So if form process accepted, so again there is this story, okay? Here I'm producing a form. Form process will try to carry out the effect of the form, whatever that is. In this case, it's an edit form because I specify a record that should be edited, right? So these forms of Web2Py are both marvelous and a curse. They are marvelous because they do a lot, and a curse because you don't quite expect them to do so much. And so they have this slightly mysterious behavior of why do they do so much by just saying form process accepted. But essentially what is going on under the hood is this, that this line just generates a Python object which contains a form, all the instructions to display and process a form, but it just generates it. Now, when you say if form process, this causes the form to be processed. This means if this is a GET request, you just produce the form. If this is a POST request, that is, if the user has filled in material and is sending you back a filled form, process will try to validate the form and carry out the various side effects. In this case, modifying directly and without you needing to do anything else, the record directly in the database. And it will tell you whether the form was accepted or not. Accepted means that it validates correctly. In this case, we don't have any validator, you know, because I removed my swear word validator. I mean, I'm not calling it, but I could be calling it, right? I could call just as before. In the process method, I could specify a non-validation method, a no swearing, right? I could cut and paste it here and it would work just the same. But then after the process is, after the form is processed, I can check, was it accepted? Because I need to do two different things with a successful form and with a failing form. With a successful form, I need to redirect you to some other page because the edit went through and now I'm sending you back to another place. I told you the last time why we need to do this. I never want to serve you a web page as a result of a post request because it would work badly with the browser reload. So if your post request to edit the form it was successful, I'm going to send you somewhere else. If instead this does not happen, so if this branch is not followed, okay, actually I think that I'm very confused, but I don't think that the return is needed with a redirect. I wonder how to find out, but I would need to look in the Web2Py documentation. Where would it be written? Which chapter? I think it's written in the core, because it's one of the helpers described in the core, and I can search here for redirect. Okay, and if I search for it, redirect the user to another page. Sorry? Return is not required, yes. It's not explained clearly, but so, I mean, it's not a bug to write return, but I think I can just say redirect. Let's try it, okay? If it breaks, we will notice it. Okay? Otherwise, if there are errors in the form, so if it's not successful but there are errors in the form, I tell you, please enter the correct values, okay? And then I return the form to you. So let's look a moment at this form and at this process. There are three ways in which the processing can proceed, right? Once you do if form process, there are three cases. If accepted is true, this means that the edit was valid, the modification was carried out, and I'm redirecting you elsewhere. Okay, this is possibility number one. Possibility number two is that there is an error. If form.errors, this means that there is some error in the form. And then I flash to you, please enter correct values, and I will return the form back to you. There is a third way. The third way is the one in which neither the form is accepted, nor there are errors. And this happens when the form is created the first time, right? When I created the form the first time with the values of that record, form process accepted is false because, you know, no modification was carried out. This is a form that you have just created with a GET request. Okay? There are no errors either, and so I simply, in that case, give you the form so that you are able to carry out your edit. Okay? Let's look at it in practice. I need again. I don't know. I don't like to use the swear words too much in teaching. So maybe I should change my like we cannot say fool this time. Okay, fine. So it's better. So here in the process, I can say on validation or on validate. On validation is equal to no swearing. Okay, so let's test this code a little bit. Did you discover magically what am I doing with the format? Can you tell me what to fix? Oh, okay, let me do it that way so you learn also in case you don't know. So git commit am checkpoint. Okay, git fetch. So if I fetch, I see that there is a new branch that is called by lecture 5 fixed. And so I can say git merge of this branch. What was it, the problem?
The exposure was taking up entire width because it wasn't in a three-quarter or any kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I just wanted the buttons below. Oh, that I didn't close the container. I see, I see. So at any rate, let me resolve the conflict, okay? No, but I don't want these. So I want a memo container. No, I just want a memo, a moment. This class is equal to memo, and is the one with the so let me reason again in boxes, okay? I want the memo class in this way. Then I want wait, why wouldn't this work? Memo text, memo title, memo content. I close this div and then I say container button list, but I don't need container. I just want a button list. Okay, well, maybe container button list, right? And I want these, and I want these. Will this work? Okay, should this work? We don't know, right? Let me try. No. But what is that has a line in it? I mean, I really don't. I'm getting a bit frustrated.
Is it that the buttons come after the close of memo text?
But why? Because if you look at the, you know, the margin is in the memo divider, and so I don't know very well. Why doesn't this work? You cannot figure it out either, right? Oh yeah, so you were fixing it in that way, but we don't know the root cause of this. There must be some root cause, but okay, just to avoid me going crazy during the class, I say that the button list I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, padding bottom 20 pixels. Maybe this will, but this is a wrong solution, right? I would try to figure it out later simply. No, it doesn't. Okay, fine. Let's say that we figure it out later in the proper way and we don't waste time for the moment. So if I click on this edit link, now in theory, if I haven't missed anything and I know already what I have missed, but I will click nevertheless, this should work. Now let's see what goes on. Okay, so it actually works incredibly. This is a very funny page. So why do I see something at all and it didn't break? Because I forgot to write a file called edit.html. It turns out that Web2Py is so helpful that if you forget entirely to write the view, you actually get a default view that kind of does the right thing. Okay? So this is impressive. In truth, I don't like it all that much. I mean, it's pretty convenient, you will admit. But let me write some method, so some view. So in default, this is index.html. And I can create, well, let's use add.html. And I can, oops. Sorry. I add a file called edit.html. And actually, I make it just contain the form. So if I do this, I get a slightly better form. Now you see that there is the ID is visualized. I think that's pretty lame, right? We don't want to see the ID. So in order to eliminate the ID, I go into the definition of the table. Sorry, it's a bit slow. And just as I did for other things, I say, in fact, I just cut and paste this line. And I say that the ID should also not be one of the things that appears in the forms, okay? Because I think it's, you know, you don't want to tell the user the ID, okay? So if I reload, okay, sock, pajama, toothbrush, and I don't know, hat, whatever, okay? So now I submit, and this will work, and it has been edited, okay? So this is the, you see, let's look at it more slowly what happens. When I click the button the first time, when I do this, what happens in the code is this path. What happens in the code is that you enter the function edit, you take this else branch, you do the query, you build your form. This path is not followed because the form, once it's processed, it has not been accepted. It was just created. So this path is not followed. This path is not followed, so all it did is return the form ready for me to do edit, okay? Now, if I do an edit to the form and a submit, so if I do this, okay, if I do this, then the path followed is as before, entering from here, taking the else branch, but then these lines here are actually executed, right? Because the form was processed and accepted. My swear word now is full, right? Now what did I write? For the verification is full, yes. So if now I edit a form and one of these and I say, oh well, I am a fool, okay? What happens is that we should be taking the other path, okay? So we take the path in which we have these elif form errors, okay? So it's a bit complicated how these forms work because you have these various paths that depend on two things. On whether this was a GET request, in which case you are asking for the form the first time and there is no processing really. I mean, processing the form does not do anything. The form is never accepted, it's simply produced, okay? And whether it's a post request, that is whether when you submit the form, there are these two possible outcomes. One is that the form was accepted, and the other one is the form contains errors. Okay, so that's how it works. Sorry if I waste a bit of time on this, but it's kind of there is a lot that happens in very few lines, so it's always a bit of mystery other times I taught the class. Okay, questions on this part? This is sort of the bread and butter of getting things done with Web2Py to edit data in a database or in some place. Yes. Yes, edit is called twice because, let me show you, in fact. That's a really good question. Let me show you what happens in the network tab. Okay, so so let me go back to the, to the index page. Okay, so this is the index page. Okay, now I click on edit. And this does a GET request for the edit page, okay? Now, when I submit, actually, the easiest is to follow here through the logging here, because this will log all the requests. Let me empty it a moment and go back so that you can see what happens. 1 second. Let me make this narrower, so that you can see in parallel these two, okay? Bigger font, well, not that big. Okay, so you see I can do a request here, okay? And this is a request to start a default index, great. Now I click on this edit button, and this does a get to start default edit 2. Because I wanted to edit the second entry, right? Now I say what to bring, passport, phone, and I don't know, coins. I click on submit, and this will do a post request to the same place. Okay? You see? So this is a post request to the same place. So it's called twice, right? These endpoints, start default, edit to, is called twice. The first time with a get request to generate the form for you to do the edit. And the second time it's called with a post request in order to pass back to the server the new values of the form. And because the form is accepted, what you get is a redirect to the index. Okay? A bit all in the same thing. In the same place, everything happens, okay? Everybody's happy now? Okay. This way of using forms is also the way that officially get and post requests should work on the web. The official use of get and post requests is this. A get request should be used when you want information, but you're not going to cause a permanent modification on the other side. Post requests are used to pass data and are allowed to have side effects. Okay, and this is exactly what happens here. And the reason I'm telling you this is because now I'm instead going to break the rule. Okay, I'm going to break this rule and do a hack that everybody does in the modern web. That is, I want to enable you to click on the trash button and delete a record immediately without any confirmation. Oh well, actually I could do it in two ways. Maybe let me do it in two ways. I first delete it with any confirmation, and then I will delete it with confirmation with another icon. Okay? So how do we delete and edit a record without confirmation? Well, the first step is this. This in index.html, actually let me do a checkpoint because now it works and I merge with the rec sheet. So okay, fine. So here you see that the button to edit is associated with a URL, but this one is not, right? And so we should do a button like as above. So let me redo the button to delete. A class is equal to btn, and then I don't know, like red. And href is equal to, I send it to you to a URL that is called default delete. Okay, instead of edit, delete args is equal to cl.id. And so this code has many problems, okay, for those of you who are web experts. And I simply decided that I will fix them one by one, showing you, telling you what the problems are and what the fix is, okay? And so here I put an icon that is equal E to a trash bin, fa trash, okay? So this creates the proper icon as before. You will not notice a lot of visual difference, okay? So if I reload these, it will look the same, except that now this is takes you to a place that is called delete/1, which we haven't implemented yet. So if I try to load it, it tells me that it's invalid. Okay, we need to write this delete function. Okay, so let me write this delete function. Here I said again. Let me write it on top, just is easier. So def delete. Okay, and actually I'm gonna copy some of the code here because some of it is the same, you know, if this is missing, and otherwise I want to do a query, right? So let me simply write this code. So if the argument is missing, otherwise I build a query and then I say db.q.delete. Okay, this will take care of the deletion, nothing more simpler than that. And once you delete these, I'll send you back to the index. Okay, so this kind of works, except that I need to sort of put the parentheses right. So, and you notice that this is badly written because I can simply say something like this and write a little bit of a shorter piece of code, okay? Super short. Great. Let's see whether it works. So now and I don't need a view, right? Because you hit this URL, and as soon as you hit it, the data is deleted, and zoom, you are sent back, okay? So let's see, like this, oh well, if I click here, ta-da, works. It works, but it's actually very unsafe, okay? And I tell you why this is unsafe. Notice that the URL that I had to hit, it's unsafe, but it can be made safe. The URL I had to hit is very simple in form: start, default, delete 3, right? And the problem is that whenever there is a get to this URL from me, my if I own a third list item, you know, if the entry in the database that has ID 3 belongs to me as user, as logged in user, that entry will be deleted. That is the logic that I coded, right? Does anybody see the subtle problem? Probably not, because the problem is very subtle. The problem is the following. I am in my browser and I'm logged in. So you might imagine that if I generate this URL request, I have indeed the right of causing the deletion of that record. Now you may tell me that it's not entirely kosher because this is a GET request and not a POST request. And so, you know, I shouldn't modify content based on a GET request, but that's actually not the major problem. The major problem is this. If I have my browser open, suppose that on the side of this site, in another tab, I have, I don't know, a Facebook post by you that contains somehow a URL that is that URL. Or, you know, or actually that you generate a post in your blog where you have as image source for a URL, for an image, you declare that one of your images actually lives at that URL. What happens? So this is another site, it's his blog, okay? But it's open in my browser, okay? How does web authentication work? You would assume, and people naively believe, and I used to believe as well, of course, that authentication in a browser is related to the tab. But it's not quite like that. So if I have my site, I don't know what is my site called. Let's assume it's called, I don't know, HappyDuck. I have my site called HappyDuck, and any request coming from my browser to HappyDuck will contain all the cookies for HappyDuck. So if he writes in his blog an image that comes from HappyDuck, his image request will come to my site together with my logged in cookie. Believe it or not. Isn't it crazy and weird? It is, right? It is pretty crazy, frankly. So I get this request for a GET that can cause my deletion. And these, you know, this type of attacks nowadays don't happen anymore because few web developers are so sloppy as to write code that is similar to what I did, right? And I'll tell you how to fix it. But in the good old times, this used to happen. These attacks were roughly the rule. Okay, that you could forge a special URL so that when the user would load images from his site, if you happen to be logged into Gmail or Facebook or whatever in another tab, loading another website in your browser would cause requests to other sites for which your browser had cookies and actions also on your behalf. Okay, so this is a security hole. Essentially, we can never have actions on the basis of cookies alone. That is the real problem. Yes?
There's actually another problem. I don't know if the database in Web2Py specifically reuses IDs. You have to like refresh the page or click the back button. Then you might call the URL again. And that might delete another entry that might be yours as well.
No, because, I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. But no database generally uses ID saver. No, but also it's not a problem because of this, because I have already deleted the URL. or you say if I am using the database from multiple, if I'm using my app from multiple tabs. And so, yeah, so he's asking a very sophisticated question, actually, I think. So let me explain it slowly because it's complicated. I think that you're thinking this. But assume that I have two browsers, one on the desktop and maybe even one on my phone, simply. Right? And he's wondering, now I've loaded the index page and there is an item called item with ID 3 at this point in time. And then he wonders, you know, I can go from my phone, access the same site from mobile, do some you know, I add and delete some other stuff. And maybe now what used to be the thing with ID 3 is no longer the thing with ID 3, right? And so you push the button with a lot of delay, maybe 1 hour later on, because when you go back to your office or your room, your page is still in the browser. You click on the delete button, and now you delete stuff that belongs to you because that is checked. But you may not be deleting what you think you are deleting. This is his question, and it's really a very good question. This cannot happen because in any database I know, generally the ID is never reused. So the ID field is declared as auto-increment. What can happen is this, and this can really happen. So suppose I have passport phone coins. I go on mobile, okay, and I say passport phone coins and socks, whatever, no? Then I go back in my office, and in my office, I will continue to see passport phone coins, because if I don't refresh, I don't refresh. And then I may think, oh, how stupid, I don't list the socks, therefore this list item is useless. You hit delete and you delete it, even though you had an edit. That is, you know, the information you may be seeing is stale. This is true, but it's the same record, okay? It's not a security issue, but it is, you know, this way of building the web is very static in a sense. Once I serve you the page, I don't auto-refresh it. There would be a way to cause the page to auto-refresh, but it would be incredibly clunky. You know, it would be the page reloading itself with a delay in time. To do things better, we really have to move to JavaScript, which we do later in the class. Okay, but it's a very good question. Now, instead, how do you stop this problem of somebody else forging a URL that causes me to delete entries from my site? The only way you can do it is adding a dynamic signature to these URLs. Okay, so imagine, you know, I'm building this website. Rakshit is logged in and he has a cookie. The cookie contains a secret. It contains this longest random string. First of all, I want to point out to you that if you know the secret, you know, if all the security falls down, because if you know the secret in the cookie, you can forge his cookie and you can pretend to be him. And in that case, you know, then you are there already. You know, there is no more security to worry about because you have already broken into it, right? So assume that that secret is not known, is not leaked. Then what I can do is this. I can essentially use that secret as a key to produce a piece of the URL that encrypts the fact that you know, I'm giving this, I'm producing this button just for Rakshit. So because you know, he requested the page when he loads it, and he can see it. But you now don't know anymore how to forge the correct URL, because it contains this secret that is due to the cookie that is variable, and you cannot guess the cookie if you are in another, if you are trying to forge the URL in another tab. Okay, so let me show how it works. Fortunately, there are helpers in Web2Py to add these cryptographic signatures. So what you do is this, that here you don't just build a URL that says default delete with these arguments. You add another parameter that says user signature is equal to true. Let me do this without doing anything else for the moment. Okay, so if I do this and I reload the page, what happens now is that this delete link, and I apologize, I don't quite know how to make this sort of font larger that is at the bottom of the screen. But if you try the experiment home or if you reproduce these, the URL is always the same, delete/1, but then there is a question mark, underscore signature is equal to, and then there is a long random string. This long random string is produced in some way using the secret in the cookie by encrypting some session information. So this is essentially unique to this cookie. So if you try from your application to forge it, you don't know how to forge a correct string to cause the deletion, right? So this produces a secure URL in order to trigger an action, okay? Now I need to check on the receiving side that the signature is correct. Unfortunately, this is again easy because all I need to say is auth.requires signature. Okay, this is very beautiful. But so let me show you how it works. Okay, you see this is delete/1. So let me copy this URL. Let me open a new tab. I enter the URL here, but I deleted the signature to show you the effect of forging, right? If I try to forge it, so using the delete/1 URL, okay, and I load it, this simply throws me to this generic page. Okay, so this requires a signature. Try to verify the signature. The signature was not there, and so I was not granted access to do my deletion. Let me try in another way, okay? So let me cut and paste the URL again, and then simply modify a single digit. Instead of a D, I put a 4, okay? And obviously, if I do this and I reload the page, again, I'm not authorized, right? So you need to essentially guess this string. But this string is hard to guess because it's due to the cookie, and you hopefully cannot guess the content of somebody's cookie because, otherwise, all hell breaks loose, basically, right? Great. So this is the way to do a GET request that can have side effects on the server. You need to protect it with a user signature. And of course, you need to have these URLs available only from signed-in users. But this is kind of obvious, right? Because if the URL comes in from somebody not signed in, you really, it could come from anywhere on the internet, and you have no control, right? Now, there is another subtle thing that I haven't quite explained about forms, or on how forms behave. But if you think about it, you could wonder, well, it's good that you protected this URL to delete stuff, but really, what about the form we had before to edit stuff, right? Because we had this form to edit stuff, to edit one of these index entries, right? And so it works in this way. I give you the form, and you give it back to me in a post request. But maybe he now can forge a form content with a post request. He can somehow do this post request to this URL from the browser, and then again from his, when I load the page from his website, his post request will cause changes on the other website. You see, this is also a possible attack. No, you don't get very well how it works. Okay, I have this site that is called Happy Duck. Okay, and I have this post URL that you can use to modify an entry in a table. You can edit a form, right? And so I have this site Happy Duck, and so you know that if you do a post to edit/12, you are causing an edit. You are causing a change to the 12th record in the database, right? Then he can produce his own blog site or funny site that works I don't know how. He can put a red button that says, click here for the special discount or to view the movie, no? You click there, and because you are logged in also in Happy Duck when you click there, his post request that goes to Happy Duck/edit/12 will change the content of my 12th entry, right? So, I mean, it's the same problem. It's just via post request and not a GET request, but it's the same vulnerability, okay? Identical vulnerability. So why did I not have to worry when I was creating a form. And the reason is the following. Hey, I don't know where I am. Okay, let's look at how a form looks like. So this is an edit form, right? So now let me inspect it. And so this is the form. Okay, this thing here is the form, which contains various divs with you know, a text area element is this element here that where you can type. Let me see if I can enlarge a font. A moment. Yeah, great. Let me show you better how the form looks like. So let's look at the form. The form has a method post by default, okay? You should look inside how it is done, but each field has a label, okay? And then there is the content proper. You can have text area, or you can have, where is it? Input fields, okay? So this looks very normal. I mean, there is a lot of stuff auto-generated. But still we don't see where the security is. The security is here. You see, there is a funny thing here. There is a div with a display none. This means this is a div that you actually should not show to the user. If you say display none, this information is hidden, but it still exists. What is inside here? If you look at it, there is other stuff. Okay? This other stuff is the ID of the thing you are editing. You are sending back, I'm actually trying to edit thing number 1. Okay, so that when you receive the form, I mean, you will know it nevertheless. I don't know how Web2Py uses it, but it's there, okay? The other thing you know, you have are these two, form key and form name. Form name is just used by Web2Py for some internal bookkeeping for how it does validation, etc. But the form key is again a long random string which serves exactly the same purpose. What Web2Py does behind the scenes is the following. Suppose you ask me a form to edit, right? Web2Py generates a random string and puts it in the session where you can remember whatever you want, right? So for when he, sorry, you're sitting there, so I use you, but when you ask me for a form, I invent a random string that can say, for example, I don't know, paprika, and I put it in the session. When you post the form to me, I say, let's look at the cookie. With your cookie, I look up the session, and then I say, what is the form key? And I check that your form key that you're sending back to me coincides with the one I've stored. So no other person can send me back a form, because if he tries, you know, with his cookie or whatever, you know, he will not be able to forge a form which contains the proper form key. That is the idea. It's as if, you know, I'm opening a store, and okay, suppose I don't know how to do it, but suppose I have a restaurant, right? And I want you to order something, but I don't want any people to call in, right? I want to give a menu only to my good clients. So he comes in the store and says, you know, I'd like tonight to be able to order by phone. Can you give me a menu? And I say, yes. And I write him a paprika as the particular password for that particular menu, right? And then I give it to him. And then when I tell my people, you know, paprika is one of these secret words which I have authorized. In this case, it would be related to his cookie, really. But so if somebody else tries to call in an order, I say, hey, you know, and by the way, what's the form key? And if they don't know it, they cannot really place the form, place the order. That's the idea. So there is all this validation that is due fundamentally to a slight mismatch in which between the way the web was invented and the way the web is actually used. Okay? And essentially, this extra validation and the possibility of attacks is due to the fact that the cookie is not associated with a particular tab. When you are logged in into a site, you are not logged in a site in a particular tab. Actually, the browser is logged in and will send a cookie to that site whenever you hit a URL of that particular site. Okay, and this generates all these sort of possibilities of attacks from which we have to defend. So essentially, this boils down to whenever a URL can cause side effects, you have to check not only that the user is logged in, but you have to check that the URL cannot be forged, cannot be invented, or not the URL, but at least the request generally. If the request is simply a URL, as in our delete button, then you need to add a signature to the URL. If the request contains a form, then you could either sign the URL, but it looks a bit junky, and so a solution that is a little bit cleaner, that is used automatically by Web2Py behind the scenes, is to sign the form with a random value, and Web2Py will check that any form that comes back from a user contains the correct random value. Okay? This is super important. I mean, in the good old days of the web, very many, even mainstream sites were hacked in this way. Questions on these? Too fast, too slow? About right. Okay? So, what is the time? Well, I still technically have a couple of minutes. So I just want to say, at this point, we actually have a lot of power because we can create create some UI that displays stuff. We can create database tables, and we can cause actions to database tables via buttons that are pressed or things that are clicked, etc., etc., right? So if we assemble these various elements, and next time we will do more of it, we can actually build a lot of sites and a lot of good stuff. And so what I want to do next time is build, something slightly more sophisticated than this site. And the homework will be based on some variation of what we are doing now. Some mild variation of what we are doing. So the starter code will be similar to what we have today at the end of the class. Okay, and it will be due next Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that. Okay, thank you.